In my years on YouTube, I have spent way too much time covering Europe in games like EU4 and even in Civ. So today we're going to take it out east, specifically to the Far East. We're going to be using the largest version of Civs East Asia mod, which ranges all the way from southern India up into Siberia, all the way over to Sakhalin and Hokkaido, and then down through Japan. And of course we have the big bad Indonesians, but there's a couple other nations that maybe you wouldn't expect. Maybe a couple of people that are looking for a little bit of spices. And overall we have 21 civs on the map, and it is a huge map, so there should be some interesting stuff to look forward to. Places like China are probably going to get pretty crowded pretty quickly, considering how many civs there are in the area. And I have natural disasters cranked off the scale, and let me just say, it leads to some pretty interesting outcomes. I was having some performance issues and the game was crashing pretty hard in the late game, so if you guys have any workarounds for stuff like that with these bigger maps, please let me know in the comments. I know some of it is just like issues with the game engine since like whatever the Rising Storm update, but if you have a suggestion, leave it in the comments, please. If you do enjoy the video, don't forget to leave a like, and if you enjoy it enough to share it with a friend, go ahead and take the link and send it to them. I would appreciate that a lot. There are 4 Chinese civs over here, not including Germany in Qingdao, as well as Mongolia. We're only 6 turns in, and many of them have 2 to 3 cities. So things are going to get crowded here very quickly. On the flip side, over in India, we just have the 2 Indians with Chandragupta as well as Gandhi. And then Victoria has set up shop over here. A lot of people had asked for Victoria in the last video, so here you go. We got some Victoria this time around. But I'm happy we have a Mongolia over here to challenge Russia, because I didn't want Russia to just get massive and be like this massive behemoth that nobody could even touch because they were just undisturbed for 200 turns. So I'm definitely happy to see one of the Mongolias over here. I think that one is Genghis Khan. And then we have Kublai right here, like right next to each other, I'm pretty sure. This mod says that it allows the US as well as Spain, but it was like I did 3 test runs and it just kept one of them would replace the other one. So we're just going to go with Spain this time around. US will have their turn next time. We do have the French down here in Indochina. And I also made any option for like navigable rivers, made them all navigable. Try to expand the borders as much as we possibly can, so that way people have ways of traversing the terrain and fighting more. That's basically what I want. I just want people to fight more. I also should mention that I have a couple of city-states, and that is due to them having true start locations in this mod. I think there's 5 of them. A lot of people were asking in the previous videos about having some city-states, so here you go. We got some city-states. There's not a lot, but there's a couple of them. I know I'm definitely going to be keeping my eyes over here on Wilhelmina as well as Indonesia. Whoever's able to come out on top between them is going to have a lot of forest tiles that they're going to be able to work, and things are going to get very spicy, I think. Though after seeing Indonesia's performance in the huge world map, I think they're probably going to do all right. But all this land over here in Burma, Tibet, Central China, it is all free for whoever wants it, though. There's quite a bit of mountainous terrain over here, so maybe it won't be as useful as I think it will be. But like I said, there's definitely going to be a lot of action in China. And it looks like our first Civ casualty is going to be Chandragupta. Rest in peace, my friend. He was getting beat up on by Gandhi as well as Victoria. And I reckon Victoria is going to take the city. But yeah, the first one to go, he lost a couple of cities down here to loyalty as well, which I re-enabled because it was kind of a divisive thing on the last video. I disabled loyalty. People said that they liked it. Some people said that they hated it. I think it made things a little less interesting. So we're going to stick with loyalty. We're just not going to use Eleanor for any of our runs anymore. And Portugal is doing really well down here in the south of India. They actually have their first sort of colony of their colony up here in this area. Pretty much untouched, and this land is all going to be very good, very fertile, lots of housing, so they could get some very big cities down here. And it looks like Java is mostly handled by Indonesia, but Wilhelmina over here has jumped over and has settled Arnhem in Borneo, and it looks like they actually have another settler that they're going to be moving over here, settling the Hague. So Borneo may very well just go to the Dutch just outright, which would be really good for them. Lots of forest tiles. Not sure what Korea's issue is with the northern parts of Korea, but they just skipped it and went into Manchuria. So they have 2 cities up here, and then nothing in here. I don't know. But Japan is going crazy. We have a lot going on over here. Lots of volcanic eruptions that keeps on wiping out this Gifu city over and over again, because I have my disasters turned all the way up to 5 with a mod, so we're hopefully going to get some like pretty gnarly stuff with that, especially flooding. Flooding should be absolutely crazy in the late game. And it definitely looks like Peter and Genghis Khan are going to war, and I'm very curious to see how this goes, because a good war for one of them early on very well could give them like the region, though Russia just has so many cities compared to them. I'm curious to see how this is going to turn out. Talking about China being a little bit crowded, and most of it is this Yongle or whatever his name is, Dude has so many cities, he could literally just like populate the world with them. Meanwhile, Qin Shi is working his way inland, doing quite well, and it looks like they've actually founded Islam. Apparently they're Islamic over here in China. And now that I mention it, most of them are actually all the way up into here, and even the Germans are an Islamic state. You heard it here first, folks, all the way up even this China. I think this is Kublai. He is Islamic as well as a Buddhist, so a little bit of a mix up with it. No Koreans in the north of Korea, just in Manchuria, and a lot of them. And I believe that this is Hojo in the south, and Tokugawa is getting dominated. He actually took Tokyo, but they've migrated up here into this island. But I believe Hojo has another city up here as well, cutting them off at the pass. So it looks like Tokugawa probably not going to last very long. Meanwhile, we have the Spanish over here settling Manila, Toledo, and Barcelona. And meanwhile, Wilhelmina continuing to try to settle in Borneo. They have Utrecht here, right in the dead center of it. It looks like they lost a city over here to Barbs. Not looking so good because Indonesia has taken their former capital of Jakarta. So Java is very much firmly in the hands of Indonesia, as well as Bali. The Australians can't have it this time. But I'm definitely looking forward to this. There is going to be some fighting over here between Gandhi and Victoria, the clash of the century even. And I was not kidding when I said that there was going to be some flooding. A lot of flooding. This is absolutely disgusting. How many cities have just been wiped out? Manchuria has become just a bunch of islands up here, or at least very barely connected locations of land. And then, like I said, China just absolutely destroyed both of these major rivers. And then down here in Southeast Asia, it also looks like it's split up into an archipelago almost, with France and Khmer duking it out, but it looks like Khmer coming out on top so far. Portugal, again, splendid isolation, but they have touched tips over here with Gandhi. Gandhi doing okay, but getting shoved off of the coast here by Victoria. Not really any surprise. Hasn't really gone up over the mountains here yet. I'm not really sure why, but seems to be quite happy to just be settling down over here in India. But Yongle, or Yongala, I don't know how to pronounce that, is doing just fine. He's actually the #1 kind of power in terms of score, right up there with Portugal. And then Peter over here in Russia in the 3rd spot, but he's definitely got some competition because Genghis Khan is not going anywhere. They had a couple of wars early on, mostly stalemates, and now they're just kind of standing there staring at each other menacingly. Kind of like over here in Japan with Tokugawa just chilling, just doing fine. No population, like hardly any population in these cities at all. But it's okay because we've got some colonization over into Manchuria by Japan. So maybe we don't have to have war. Maybe we can spread overseas and do colonization and, you know, assimilate natives or whatever they do. And finally, after like 250 turns, Korea has a city with 12 population here in North Korea. The Korean peninsula is unified, and they also have quite a bit of land up here in Manchuria. So things looking good on the Korean front. Spain has pushed down into Borneo as well, with Valencia down here. And yeah, Wilhelmina not doing well. Indonesia just continues to bully her, and now she's got 3 cities all without any coastline. Definitely not doing well. Indonesia continues to push over here into like Sumatra, I think this island is. But there are some British here, so I'm curious how that's going to go. But the Spanish have also moved over into Malaysia. So there is quite a bit of colonization going on by the European powers. No surprise. But I'm really hoping that that will lead to some interesting conflicts. But all of this flooding is causing some crazy changes to the landscape. Now, as much as it pains me to say this, the #1 and #2 are actually Portugal and then Russia up here. So looking pretty good for the European colonizers, but there is quite a silver lining here as the 2 Chinas over here are doing incredibly well. They're definitely pinching on this 3rd China, and then the 4th China up here is doing okay also. So there's quite a bit going on. There's definitely some interesting borders down in the south. Spain over here gave up on the Philippines and set up most of their colonies over here in Malaysia. And Indonesia is still doing just as good as they were before, with it looks like the Dutch doing okay, I guess. But the silver lining of all the flooding is that there's going to be a lot of power, because there's going to be a lot of these wind turbines being built on them. I mean, I don't really know what else you can even build on them, if you can even build anything on them. A couple of these habitat things, maybe, but still, I don't think that would be as important as power unless you needed the growth. I gotta say though, I'm really surprised at how little Vicky is doing. She's made her way up here, got Portsmouth up in like Bengal area, But that's about it. Aside from that, I think there was one colony over here that maybe got taken, Bristol down here. That's it. That's all they've done. And I'm surprised at how little there is being taken. Like, there's still spots that are open around her. Also, RIP Singapore getting destroyed by nuclear submarines from France. I just saw that. But the third spot is Korea, actually, just right neck and neck with Russia for the second spot. And it's not really any surprise. They're definitely taking advantage of these floodplains up here. Lots of cities, lots of decent population cities, over 20 of this city down in here. Their capital not doing much, only 9, but yeah, lots of like relatively decent cities. And I think that it is definitely paying them dividends. You can see they've got quite a bit of an army going on, a navy as well. So I think you're going to see maybe a bit of conflict. It's weird because I'm used to EU4 where like if a nation wins, they basically just keep winning harder as the game goes on. But in Civ, it seems like the AI kind of sets up shop and then just kind of faces each other down, maybe swaps a couple of cities here and there due to loyalty or something like that. But I feel like you don't see a lot of these like late game Titan versus Titan wars like you do in EU4. If you guys can think of any way that we can maybe make a little more action happen with mods or whatever, I'm definitely open to suggestions because I'm very much a rookie when it comes to Civ and I don't know a lot of the more interesting mods. I've got a couple for disasters and stuff like that, but that's about it. And I just realized this while I was scrolling over it. Look at all these ski resorts in China. There's just like so many ski resorts. And sadly, I'm gonna have to call it around 410 turns because the game literally crashes every time I unpause, and I don't know what to do about it. I think it's just an issue with the game engine from one of the recent updates, but let's take a look at how we ended, right? Brighton is over here in like Xinjiang or whatever this region of China is called. It's like a desert in the middle of nowhere, 4 pops. Then down here we have, you know, a couple of cities that are cut off from the rest of them, though I think it's just because whatever this is, the Ganges, I believe, flooded something crazy, and obviously rising sea levels led to some issues. So yeah, they had some interesting looking borders, but they're surrounded on all sides by very, very scary, very beefy nations in Chadra as well as over here in Khmer. Portugal just did their thing, hung in strong, didn't really do a whole lot, didn't go to war with like a single person that I saw, and you know, ended up doing just fine. Unlike the Dutch, who didn't do very well, if you guys can't tell. But they're not the only European nation to get pushed out of East Asia. Germany has been captured by the Chinese. Nice Chinese Nuremberg, got a ring to it. We've got some Koreans up here on this island in Siberia, as well as some Japanese, but they're doing okay. Overall, I think Korea managed very well. They've got a lot of cities, a lot of like military capacity, and I think that they're doing just fine. Like, look at all these walls they have set up, so they're going to probably prevent much more flooding. They also have quite a bit of power generation, so Korea is very technologically advanced. Kind of crazy. I think this is like Lake Baikal. Looks like it actually was affected by raising sea levels as well, taking a little bit of land away from the Ruskies, but honestly, their long border with Mongolia was basically untouched, and they didn't really change much. I think these cities are all founded by the nations that have them, so very boring over on the Russian front. If you can believe that, Russia did not do a whole lot of expanding. How very un-Russian of you, Peter. Though with all the flooding, I think it's really interesting to see the random exclaves. Like over here, we've got a China that split away from this China because it was getting hugboxed, but the sea tiles allowed them to actually spread out this way. So that's pretty cool. But overall, the flooding actually made some very interesting dynamics for borders. I think I'm definitely going to crank up these disasters in future because I feel like the flooding really kind of led to this crisis that made nations start, you know, pushing for more land and taking it from others. So that's pretty good. And lads, I made a mistake. The Dutch do exist in Haarlem, in Taiwan, because Taiwan is Dutch. Taking a look at the score, you can see here that the Portuguese and the Koreans are out in front, but there is some China going on as well as Russia out very much close for that second/third slot. So good on them. And as far as domination victories go again, would you guys believe me if I told you it was also Indonesia this time around who actually won, which is crazy because they actually won the huge world game we did a couple of weeks ago. Second slot is Khmer, which I'm not really surprised about, and then Yongo over here with the Chinese, and then Hojo as well over in Japan doing very solid. After that, it falls off quite a bit with over 1,000 score difference between Hojo and Victoria, though the only reason Indonesia is winning is because they've taken a capital from the Dutch. Portugal hasn't, but look at that military score. Safe to say if Portugal wanted to, they could. Overall, very interesting map. Let me know what region you guys would like to see next. If you have a map on the workshop in mind, make sure you let me know in the comments. Might be a contentious topic, but I'm going to say that Portugal won this out over Indonesia, though Indonesia definitely gets a special mention. And I think Korea is my second pick because Korea did very good considering the fact that they were surrounded and they managed to eke out a presence there in Manchuria. Thanks for watching to the end. I appreciate you very much. If you enjoyed, make sure you leave a like on it. And don't forget to subscribe and ding the bell so you get notified when these videos go up live every week. Special thanks to ALS Gamer, LeGrand Puba, Chio, Josh Kaczynski, Ezra Rhino, Juan Damon, Ian Powell, Cannon Fodder, Corporate Gaming, Anthony Grove, Harry Newhouse, Saranska, Ricardo, Cobalt, Rex, Total Farce for It, Drunk Binary, Nathan Albright, and many more. Thank you. For early access videos, check out the join button or the link in the description below.